Alrighty, it is Monday. Okay, I wasn't sure if this was going to be a one-shot or a two-shot, but it is a two-shot. Yes, so this is the first episode of the week of the sweat. Reed T. Ballard, good to have you here. I am Emerson Lotzia. Jesse Cofield, currently lost inside of Trader Joe's, that new one over in the Seaport.
Yeah, she loves it.
Yeah, she'll be fine. She will be fine. But here to make up for her absence is you.
Wearing red for
Tiger Woods. That'll come up in our golf segment. We also have two other DraftKings contributors with us, Matt Jones and Mr. Jeff Ulrich. Hey, everybody. How's everyone doing?
Good.
All right, Jeff, it's good to have you back from vacation. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Did he tweet it out, by the way, where he was on
Saturday?
Yeah,
where were you? It was like a teaser of
Arizona, right?
Thanks for interacting with me on social media, guys. Yeah, I was in Arizona. I went to the Phoenix Suns. And I saw the Suns win as Ted's 10-point underdogs. It was amazing.
Wow.
All right, awesome. Well, it's time to overreact to some Week 8 storylines, like the Falcons being 1-7. Dan Quinn's seat, it is scorching hot right now. Yeah. And Matt Schaub, hey, throws for 460 yards on a loss. But are you telling me he's a fantasy viable quarterback now, Jeff?
This is what we're starting with, hey, Matt Schwab?
Yeah, baby, come on.
He's not a fantasy viable quarterback. I mean, look, he got put in a situation where he threw 50 times against the Seahawks. It is going to happen. If you're the quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons this year, you're probably going to be in some situations where you're throwing 50 times because your defense is so bad. But as far as like guessing when Matt Schaub might actually be in that situation again, that's something you want to play with. This is a player who enjoys throwing pick sixes, has thrown them at a higher rate than most quarterbacks over his lifetime. So it was a one-off thing. It does look like Matt Ryan's coming back for Week 10 anyways. Unless we get some trade or another injury, then probably not going to have to worry about Matt Schaub the rest of the year anyways. So.
All right. So, Reed, if he is coming back, Matt Ryan, let's say something happens to him again and Schaub is the next man up. You're throwing him in there, dude.
Well, I mean, you're throwing him in there because this defense is terrible. Like Jeff was mentioning, it's garbage. It is hot garbage. And who knows if that's Keanu Neal? Who knows if that's Dan Quinn's scheme? If they're trading Vic Beasley before tomorrow's deadline. All of that is not looking good for the Falcons. And if you look at their if you look at their schedule after that bye, it's the Panthers, the Saints, and the Buccaneers. I mean, you could arguably say, right, that they potentially are competitive in maybe one of those three. I think the Panthers, are better than what we saw yesterday. And so though, even if he was in, right, that would lead you to believe that they're still going to pass it a ton. You're still going to get a lot of yards. Not really any touchdowns for Matty there, but at the same time, like this offense is still humming and it's still making guys like Freeman viable because that defense is terrible. So any quarterback that is within reason is going to be fantasy viable.
Matt, please express your appreciation for Matt Schaub.
Oh, I love a good Matt Schaub game. But yeah, I mean, if you're not viable throwing like what he threw 52 times yesterday, then I mean just immediately retire. Like there's no hope if you can't get there on 52 attempts. So no, I mean if he plays again, sure he's worth like a punt and you can stack him in a GPP if you really feel froggy, but like he's never going to be a cash guy no matter what happens.
Dude has made so much money as like a backup quarterback too.
Yeah.
Didn't like Seattle give him a ridiculous contract a few years ago?
Oh, was he on Seattle? I can't remember.
That was Matt Flynn.
No, there you go.
Yeah.
Hey, listen.
Other Matt.
There's a lot of Matts out there.
Indubitably, there really is. Hey,
Your name Matt Emerson?
Yes, it is. My middle name's Matthew. Yes, my mom and dad call me that.
One day.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll message you. I'll let you know. I'll interact with you on social media. Eagles beat the Bills here in Buffalo. Not here in Buffalo, but in Buffalo. Are the Eagles back, and is Jordan Howard a top-tier fantasy option now, Fowler?
Jordan Howard is Jordan Howard. He's going to get you those 18 carries potentially at his ceiling. And what you like about Jordan Howard is he can get into the end zone. That's what we saw in Chicago where he got a ton of carries and he got into the end zone, but he's not this big, flashy guy that we see like David Montgomery. It's really a matter of, are these teams like the Eagles, like, even the Bears to that point, and even the Bills, are these teams really good? I was listening to Sigmund Bloom's podcast, and he mentioned it this morning, like, hey, look, are these temes that were in this like week 9, week 8, part of the schedule, and we just don't know. Like the Rams, for instance, we have these question marks around these teams, and the Eagles coming into that Buffalo game weren't getting a lot of respect because of what happened in Dallas, and that's kind of what happens, right? There's a rubber band effect in the league, and so I would say Jordan Howard, because Miles Sanders is day-to-day, I think he still plays. The reports are that he's still going to play. Is still fantasy viable as RB2. He's going to get you those touches. He's going to get you those red zone looks. He's not going to be an RB1 by any stretch. And I don't think the Eagles are back yet. They still have a tough schedule coming in, but they'll play up to the competition as opposed to some of these other teams like the Bills, like the Chargers, and all these other garbage teams.
Matt, it's a real top-heavy NFC, so even if the Eagles are back, I mean, they got some ground to make up here. You there, Matt?
Oh, sorry, you cut out for a sec.
It's okay. It's perfectly
fine. Yeah, I'm
fine.
not. The old Jordan Howard archetype is not really the guy I'm willing to put money on. He doesn't catch passes. He's totally game script dependent. In games that they've lost, he's had like 6.5 PPR points. Like I'm all set on that. As far as the Eagles go, like I mean, it depends on what your definition of is back. Like, are they a Super Bowl contender? No, but they could easily win the division. The NFC East is the only division without a 5-win team right now. So it's all super tight still. So yeah, I mean the Eagles, I would imagine the Eagles end up winning the division. But I don't think they're I don't think they're good enough to really make a run.
Jeffrey, your thoughts on Jordan Howard and the team he plays for?
Yeah, I mean, he gets a little bit of a short-term boost if Miles Sanders is out, but I kind of agree with Matt. I mean, this is more of a one-dimensional running back. I'm not sure how much of a PPR boost, if any, he'll even get if Sanders doesn't play. They'll probably just roll in Boston Scott to play that role or someone else. So he's a nice player. He's played well. I mean, obviously the Eagles are trying to use him in more of a workhorse role, which is nice. But the thing is, the Eagles aren't that good. Their defense isn't that good. So he's not going to be in so many games where he's getting 23 carries. This is like the first time a Doug Peterson running back has gotten over 20 carries. And I believe since like this time last year when Josh Adams got it. And it was only because of injuries. So you don't see it very often with Doug Peterson. He likes to rotate running backs. Short term, like I said, it's not that terrible matchup with Akeem Hicks out against the Bears next week, but it's still going to be hit or miss with Jordan Howard. It's either he gets those big carries and he gets into the end zone, or it's going to be kind of a slow week.
Guys, the Bears lose again, but should not have, because they missed a field goal again, which would have won them the game. But David Montgomery breaks out with 135 yards. Is this the start of a consistent production here for the rookie running back, Mr. Jones?
I mean, it would be nice. He seems like he's talented enough, but I'm not sure what you can really expect from that offense. They're going to be inconsistent. If he maybe could start to see some targets, that would be a plus. He's seen 3 or fewer targets in 5 of the 7 games that they've played so far, and they just aren't getting into the red zone. They have the 11th lowest pass attempts zone and 8th lowest rush attempts in the end zones, in the red zone. So yeah, I mean, I guess he could do something like this, but like if the touchdowns don't come and he's not getting usage in the pass game, he's going to have these floor games where he just completely torpedoes your lineup. So I'm all set on the non-catch, pass catching type running backs, like I said, for Jordan Howard.
Yeah, doesn't really get my blood flowing either. What about you, Jeff?
That doesn't get my blood flowing at all. I mean, it's one nice game, but the Chargers' run defense is set up to have success against. I mean, this is the type of game where David Montgomery, if he didn't have a big game, you'd be ultra worried because it was such a good matchup, really at home too. Them as playing as favorites. Now they're going up against the Eagles, who have a really good run defense, and you kind of need to pass the ball against. So I'm not really expecting that much continuation. I think David Montgomery is going to be a real hit or miss target the rest of the year. And Matt's right. The Bears are just a mess. I mean, when your coach doesn't trust you to move the ball 5 more yards with 45 seconds and a timeout and just decides to kneel and take a 40-plus yard field goal, I mean, holy cow, just fade the entire Bears offense at this point. You're probably safer that way.
Talk to me, Fowler.
Yeah, if you heard Matt Nagy's press conference, it's pretty alarming, right? He's clapping back at the media saying that he wasn't going to run the ball or pass the ball to get 5 more yards, which has been a concern for the entire offseason with Chicago, which is the kicker. So I just don't get it. And that's really sort of the context of what we're discussing is the coaching staff and how they've utilized David Montgomery in this entire offense. Like Allen Robinson is an elite route runner. He's one of the best receivers. To Jeff's credit, he called in this preseason. Allen Robinson needs to be in a good team. He needs a good quarterback. David Montgomery, this team went up to get David Montgomery in the draft. And so finally we saw the talent that is there with Montgomery. The thing that has switched last week in the last 2 weeks, is his snap count. We saw 68-70% snap count increasing by week 4 or 5, but then over the past 2 weeks, the average snap count has been 49%, and they've been using more Tevin Coleman. They've just been passing it a ton, and that's where the inconsistency comes from Montgomery, is that he doesn't get enough volume, and he doesn't get enough red zone touches. Even though he saw red zone touches last week, and then he finally punched one in, it still isn't enough for him to be consistent. You like it. It's trending a little upward, but it's still not there for him to be a consistent starter week over week.
All right, following a 4-touchdown performance on Sunday and more than 40 DK fantasy points, Jeff Ulrich has declared today National Tevin Coleman Day. We going to see San Fran rolling with your boy a little more in that crowded backfield, Jeff?
I mean, look, of course Tevin Coleman scores 4 touchdowns on the week I decide to take off, and I can't even play DFS because I'm in a state that doesn't allow DFS. Of course that happens, but it was nice to see regardless. I mean, look, let's be a little bit realistic here. The 49ers are still rolling out a three-headed monster at running back. I mean, Tevin Coleman in a blowout still only got 11 carries, 13 touches. I mean, his production is extremely encouraging. I still feel like he's the best suited running back for that Shanahan offense. And the thing that I do like about Coleman going forward, and especially if you want to target him in a trade or something for season long, he's the red zone running back. We've pretty much established that since he's been back. So, yeah, he's going to be hit or miss too. He's not like racking up huge PPR numbers, but he is the red zone running back. When San Francisco gets in these blowout type situations, and they're going to get more because they're a really good team, he's going to cash in.
Okay, what do you think? Because they also have Thursday Night Football this week against, I believe, Arizona.
Well, and especially with the last 2 weeks, Matt Breida has gone out of the game. He's been banged up the last 2 weeks. He's missed virtually half of those games, which has allowed Tevin Coleman to get the lion's share of the carries. Like Jeff mentioned, look, Raheem Mostert is there. He got 9 carries. Matt Breida, before he went out, he had 11 carries. And so you have to be ultra efficient if you're Tevin Coleman. And we see why Shanahan went after him in the offseason. This guy has burst, and when he's healthy and when he gets those holes, he can actually run through them, unlike some guys like Miles Sanders, David Montgomery sometimes. Tevin Coleman is the guy who can just take off that one cut and then go. Carolina was they're a bad defense. They're a bad team on Sunday. I don't think they're that bad. I don't think that defense is that bad. But again, this is three-headed monster. You like that they run the most in the NFL. But if Breida still keeps on getting hurt, then yeah, this is going to be a huge next couple of weeks for Tevin Coleman.
Matt, still a little hesitant, maybe throwing him in your lineup here because of everyone in the backfield with him.
Yeah, I mean he's still seen the 15th most opportunities of any running back in the past 2 weeks. So that as much as it is a timeshare, he's getting a reasonable amount of looks. And not only that, Jeff mentioned it, but he's seen 9 red zone rushes to Breida's 3 over the last couple of weeks. So it's pretty clear that he has a stranglehold, at least of that part of the game plan for the 49ers. And if they keep beating teams like this, there's going to be plenty of rushing attempts to go around. So I'm a little bit I'm pretty bullish on Tevin Coleman right now.
All right, we will have you three back to discuss some Monday Night Football bets. We'll price check around the NBA first, immediately following Who'd I Miss On with Glash and Levy.
Hi there, I'm Brendan Glasheen, and this is Who'd I Miss On with Adam Levitan. It's a segment we do every Monday during the football season with Levy. We recap who he missed on when it comes to his plays from the NFL Sunday main slate. This might be your miss of all time. Big fat goose egg for Keke Coutee. The Texans receiver dressed but did not play against the Raiders. Just last week when Will Fuller went down, Coutee was a beneficiary of playing time. Instead, it was DeAndre Carter, Levy, who got all the snaps ahead of Coutee in Week 8. Why do you think the Texans chose to not play him?
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, from a talent perspective, I think it's not close between Coutee and DeAndre Carter, and from what we've seen before, going back to last year. And as you mentioned earlier this year, the usage has always been there for Keke Coutee when he has been healthy. So it's just a reminder that, we don't know what these coaches are going to do, and information is always going to be our best friend. And yeah, sometimes that's just the way it goes. We just don't know.
You sure weren't the only one getting in on Chase Edmonds at 6,200. You chased him. David Johnson's backup wasn't even close to his Week 7 production. 7 carries for just 8 yards in Week 8, plus he left the game late in the third quarter with a hamstring injury. That Saints defense is pretty legit, huh?
Yeah, and I think you have to be price sensitive with Chase Edmonds in that situation. I think you also have to understand the matchup. And so Chase Edmonds at 6,200 was actually more than Latavius Murray. He was only 800 less than Chris Carson. He was less than 2,000 less than Leonard Fournette. So, Chase Edmonds, we had some other options around him. And the Saints defense, I mean, anybody who's been underestimating them all year has just been getting killed. And defensive line, offensive line mismatch between Saints defensive line, which is just nasty, and the Cardinals offensive line, which is awful. That was also something to bear in consideration on Edmonds.
Cardinals acquired Kenyan Drake Monday morning. We'll see if that changes anything. Last one, just the second single-digit scoring game for Raiders tight end Darren Waller, 9.2 points, hauled in 2 of his 8 targets for 11 yards and a touchdown. It's like I purposely went in order from worst to not the worst miss on what could have been a better week. This is more of a positive note. The targets were there.
Yeah, I mean, the usage is going to be there for Darren Waller. I mean, he's such a focal point of their team, and he has such a big role. The problem is, as his price keeps going up and up, he was 5,900 in Week 8. We start getting into the range of really solid wide receivers. He's priced the same as somebody like Allen Robinson. He's not that much less than Robert Woods, et cetera, et cetera. So, when we start to get into that range, we have to start to be more careful with tight ends who always have a lower floor than wide receivers. So, yeah, there's always going to be options like Cam Brate, like Jonnu Smith, et cetera, at the cheap end of the tight end range. And maybe those were better plays this week than Darren Waller just due to range of outcomes.
That is who Adam Levitan missed on in Week 8. You can find his coverage on DK Live, the DK Playbook, and on Twitter at Adam Levitan. We'll catch you next Monday, Levy, to see who you missed on in Week 9.
Alrighty, Monday's fantasy basketball slate has 11 games. Yep, and we have 3 analysts here to help you decide who to pay out for. Would you like to read them?
It's Julian Adelo, RotoWire's Nick Whalen, and host of the Four Seasons podcast from Ball Is Life, Ryan Mogjosh? Is that
Mogjosh,
did I pronounce that correctly?
Mogjosh.
I apologize for that if I butchered it.
No, it's all right, dude. Jesse had to ask the other night. You have to ask this time.
Cool.
I knew it. All right, well, at guard, 4 options over 9K. We got Harden, we got Curry, Westbrook, and Trae Young here, guys. Who's worth paying up for? Jules, start us off.
Thank you for that very smooth transition, Emerson. I'll start with this. The guy that I don't like is Harden. You can definitely interest me in any of these other 3. Westbrook has surprisingly started his Rockets tenure with over 60 DK points in both of his games. Now he has the revenge narrative going against the Thunder here, so I expect a big game out of him. But I think my favorite here is probably Trae Young. He's been just as good as Westbrook just from pure fantasy numbers so far, and shooting the lights out from downtown. Philly's a little bit tougher of a matchup. They have some size to put against him, but I think Young would be my play. But all 3 of these guys really, like the pace that Curry should get in this Pelicans game with the Warriors, how poor they've been defensively, should be great for his fantasy value, especially if the Warriors can not get blown out and finally play a fourth quarter.
Josh, out of all 4 of these guys, who do you pay up for?
I kind of like Westbrook tonight for the pettiness factor. If there's a guy in the NBA that's going to want to stick it to his old team, it is Russell Westbrook. You know he's amped up for this game. Not to mention that he's finally coming around. I think it's going to take a while for Harden and Westbrook to kind of smooth things together as far as usage percentage goes and who's going to dominate the ball, what possession. But petty Super Bowl, that's tonight. That's Westbrook. That's the storyline I like tonight.
Okay, Nick, what say you?
Yeah, I was kind of deciding between Curry and Westbrook, but I think I will go with Westbrook as well. And for me, it's not really because of the revenge narrative. This really wasn't an acrimonious split as far as these things go. I know Westbrook seems like the type of guy that, maybe would play better against his former team. And I don't think he necessarily has any bad feelings toward Oklahoma City. And this game is also in Houston. So, the crowd probably won't be a huge factor. And on top of that, I just like what I've seen from Westbrook so far. I thought he got a little outside of his comfort zone in the opener against Milwaukee, but I thought he played within himself on Saturday against New Orleans. Of course, he had a triple-double in that game, 28, 13, and 10, only took 3 3-pointers really wasn't forcing things too much. And he goes up against an OKC team they're coming off of a nice win against a really bad defensive team in Golden State yesterday. But prior to that, they lost to Utah. And worse yet, they had lost to the Washington Wizards. So I think the Rockets are going to get out and run. They're already playing at the fastest pace in the league. I like Russ tonight to have a big night.
Okay, Ryan, Yanis is 10-6 against the Cavs, by far the highest priced player on the slate, but in his defense, dude has scored more than 70 fantasy points in each of his first 2 games here. Is he worth the high price tag, or are you going in another direction?
Yeah, I think he is worth it. The Cavs stink. And yes, they won on a last-second Tristan Thompson three-pointer last game, and that's going to show up as a win on the stat sheet. But they had to scratch and claw their way to that victory. Nothing changes for me. I love the matchup with Giannis against this Cavs defense. But I kind of like another small forward if you weren't to risk it with Giannis, and that's Ben Simmons tonight at 8.8K versus Atlanta. I cannot wait to watch that Sixers versus Hawks matchup. Really fast-paced, really exciting, long teams right there.
Nick, you going to make it rain for Giannis?
I love what I've seen from Giannis in terms of his aggressiveness these first 2 games, but I agree that I think the Cavs are such a bad team that there's a pretty good chance that a team like Milwaukee, one of the teams that has the most continuity in the league, a team that ran through the regular season last year, I think will do the same this season, especially against the East. I think this is going to be a big-time blowout. I think Giannis is going to be a part of that, of course. I think he probably avoids fouling out for a 3rd straight game to begin the season, but I think this one probably gets out of hand a little too early, and Giannis maybe doesn't get into the mid to upper 30s in terms of minutes. In terms of other guys I like, high priced on this slate, I like Jokic. He's at 9,600 tonight, going up against a Kings front court that's a little bit depleted without Marvin Bagley. And I like Kawhi and the Clippers to bounce back against Charlotte.
Okay, Jules, you're a little concerned as well that Giannis may not be on the floor for as long during this one-sided affair?
Somewhat. So it makes sense. The Bucks are 15.5-point favorites here, and that generally means it could be a spot where Giannis doesn't play the 4th quarter. But like we talked about a little bit, Giannis has fouled out of both games so far this season. Mm-hmm. He's averaging over 70 DraftKings points per game while playing just 32 minutes per game. So there's still a chance that he sits out the entire 4th quarter, still gets 30 minutes before then, and still scores 70 DK points in this matchup. So I guess I see him as more of a tournament play than a cash play, just because you're not sure that he's going to get the minutes. But it's a good slate to pay up for him at small forward, and this isn't even all that expensive. If I were to go anywhere else, I guess I'm going to keep harping on this Golden State New Orleans game. We really need to find out if Drew Holiday is going to be good to go or not. He's still questionable with the knee that cost him last game, but Brandon Ingram is off to a great start this season. He's looked really good coming off his best fantasy effort. At $7,500, I like him a lot, and there's plenty of value to spend down on if you are going to take maybe 2 of those point guards that we talked about off the top of the show.
All right, Jokic, Drummond, a questionable Joel Embiid here are your 9K plus options at center. Actually, he is going to be a game time decision now. Who are you interested in out of that trio, Nick?
Embiid worries me too much. Yeah. I'm already owning him in too many season-long leagues, and here we are 2 games into the year. He's already nicked up. I like Andre Drummond. Obviously he went off against this very Pacers team on opening night, went for a 30-20 game, but I would like to think at least that they've made some adjustments and won't let that happen again. So for me, that leaves Jokic. Like I said, I like the matchup against the Sacramento team that's been completely out of sorts. They've been blown out in 2 of their 3 games so far. And I like what I've seen from Jokic as well. I know there was some talk about him, hopefully coming into this season in better shape. And, he kind of showed up and looks like the same old Jokic. But, he got off to that slow start against Portland on opening night. But really from the 4th quarter of that game on, it's been vintage Jokic. He had a triple-double in his last game against an improved Suns team on Friday. Hasn't even shot the ball all that well this season. Didn't have a three-pointer in that contest. I think he's in a really, really good spot tonight to kind of go off against this Kings team.
Jules, I know you mentioned Drew Holiday a little earlier. He is out now. He has been ruled out.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right.
I just would like you to know that.
That makes me love Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram. But for the center segment, I think this is kind of a 2-part question for me. Number one, I would go Andre Drummond in cash because no Blake Griffin, because he dominated this matchup. No, I don't expect him to get the 75 fantasy points that he got in the season opener, but he's a very safe play in this spot. And from a rebounding standpoint, I think he's going to be able to do the same thing. Maybe he doesn't get to the 32 points or whatever he had in that game, but Drummond's definitely in a spot where he can get you 50 to 60 DK points and exceed value. But for tournaments, yeah, I'm looking at Jokic. That 40 DK point effort in the opener against Portland doesn't really reflect how good he's been. He only played 24 minutes in that game, and it was a close game, kind of weird. But we saw him go off against Phoenix, 66.5 DraftKings points in the next one. I think this matchup against Sacramento is much closer to what to what Jokic did against Phoenix. He should be in a similar spot in this one. So it's Jokic for tournaments, Andre Drummond for cash, and now a whole bunch of Pelicans in cash as well with Drew Holiday still out.
Okay, Ryan, out of this trio, which big beefy center do you like?
Big and beefy. I also like Jokic. 28th ranked defense for Sacramento. I'm not sure what they're doing this season. Not to mention on the other side of the ball, they're the 30th ranked offense. I love this matchup, even if it is at Sacramento and the Nuggets aren't known for being great on the road. But still, I love the matchup, and our guy said it. I'm kind of scared of Embiid's injury too. Drummond's going to put up his typical 20, maybe 15 boards with Griffin out. But if Embiid is playing, you really can't go wrong. If I had to choose one, it's probably going to be Jokic.
All right, going straight to slate approved pick time. Who was your lock of the night on this slate, Julian?
It was going to be Trae Young, but now it's going to be Lonzo Ball. He was fantastic the other night without Drew Holiday.
Good stuff. Nick?
I think you got to stick Warriors-Pelicans. I'm going Brandon Ingram. 2 bottom 5 defenses, 2 top 10 teams in pace. This Warriors defense, I know it's only been 2 games, but they have a defensive rating of 124. That is 7 points per 100 possessions worse than the Cavs last season.
Ryan, talk to me. Slate approved pick.
I like all your guys' Pelicans, Warriors talk. My lock, I'm going to have to go with Westbrook. I just think that even if it is in Houston, even if they did part ways kind of cordially and not so much up in flames, Westbrook's the kind of guy that's going to pick any chip to have on his shoulder to go off. I think we get a first glimpse of his revenge game, and I'm picking Westbrook.
Good stuff, boys. Appreciate the help. We're going to rip through some Monday Night Football bets right after this.
You're back to work on a Monday. It's Brendan Glasheen here with the DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Kenyan Drake should be back to work as well. Not in South Beach, but in the desert. The Cardinals have acquired the Dolphins running back for a conditional 2020 draft pick. Drake did not accompany the Finns to Pittsburgh for Monday night's game at the Steelers. The weekend report, a trade was agreed to in principle, has now come full circle. Arizona's interest makes sense. Lost the promising Chase Edmonds to a hamstring injury Sunday. Already had David Johnson dealing with an ankle injury that's expected to sideline him this Thursday night. So the Cards add Drake, who seems to be in line for significant work against a pretty superb Niners defense. He shouldn't get used to it. Drake may flourish short term, but long term, he might just get buried at the bottom of the depth chart once Johnson and Edmonds are back. The 25-year-old got his wish to be dealt ahead of Tuesday's trade deadline. I doubt he wished to be dealt for a demotion to third string.
Back to football here on the Sweat. Who is excited for tonight's Dolphins-Steelers game? Let me see some hands.
Right here.
Let me see some hands.
Right here.
Jeff, Matt.
Yeah.
There you go. Matt. Nope, he hates everything. Okay. Awesome. Let's go ahead and chase or fade some bets on the docket available on DK Sportsbook for tonight's Monday Night Football game. The Steelers, 2 touchdown favorites. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick here is going to start. Reed, so I want you to chase or fade here that he is able to keep this close enough so the Steelers do not cover the 14-point spread.
I don't know, man. This is like the Steelers. You look at some of these guys and some of these teams that take on the identity of their quarterbacks, coaches, what have you, their city. That's what Cleveland did in the preseason. It didn't really work out, but Pittsburgh has been doing this quite a bit where they play up in these primetime games. They're 5-1 against. They
really do.
You're right. They're 5-1 against the spread on Monday nights. And this is a bad Pittsburgh team. They're not good. They beat teams that are questionable at best. But it's the Dolphins. And Fitzpatrick, his magic, it's hit or miss, right? I mean, that's why we like him in some of these spots against the Bills last week, because some of those 50-50 balls can go his way. Most of them, most of them tonight probably won't. And so I'm going to say no, that they don't cover, even though Pittsburgh is not that good of a team.
All right, Matt, what do you think here? Does Fitzmagic deliver, stopping Pittsburgh from covering?
Yeah, I'll chase that. I mean, we're really expecting like a 2-4 team like to cover a 14-point spread. Like when I go to bet at the end of the night, when I check to see if I won or not, like this would not surprise me at all, right? Like the Steelers are bad. Like the Dolphins are very bad. but the Steelers are not good. They're not good at football right now. So it could end up being a 2-score game and they still cover. So I'm gonna chase it.
What are you going to do here, Jeff?
I am actually taking the opposite line. I really like Pittsburgh in this matchup. I think this is an absolute mismatch in a couple really important areas. The main one being offensive line versus defensive line. Pittsburgh is third in adjusted sack rate and defensive line. Miami's offensive line is terrible. They're third worst. They've allowed the third most adjusted sack, or just they have the third worst adjusted sack rate as an offensive line. So I think Pittsburgh could rack up like 10 sacks in this spot. It wouldn't surprise me if something like that happened. I also think James Conner, Jalen Samuel probably going to play. Everyone on Pittsburgh is healthy right now. The Dolphins actually are dealing with quite a few injuries. I think Pittsburgh, Reed mentioned they're against the spread record, but I think Pittsburgh just comes Monday night and just wipes the floor tonight. I wouldn't be shocked if James Conner scored like 3 times.
Oh. Okay. All right. Well, Mason Rudolph, he's under center. His projected passing total, that is going to be 230.5. I believe he has not hit that mark yet, though, this season. So chase your fade. He actually does that tonight, Matt.
Yeah, I'll fade it. I mean, it's not that he can't, but he probably won't necessarily need to. In the last 5 weeks, the Dolphins are allowing an average of 237 passing yards. So it seems like a reasonable line. But I just don't know. They both want to slow the game down. They both, they don't want to have to get into a shootout, either of these teams. So I feel like he won't need to get up to that total.
Jeffrey?
I mean, I'm going to chase the over here, and because I just like the over on most Pittsburgh props tonight, as most people can probably guess after my response to the last question.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite Pittsburgh bet because, again, there's so many different ways Pittsburgh could go out winning this game. Just defense, James Conner and Samuels just running the ball, and maybe Mason Rudolph throws like 22 times, and that's it. But 4 out of the 6 quarterbacks who've gone against Miami have hit this. There's the big play with Juju Smith-Schuster to get that passing total up. So I would still lean over here.
Big night for Mr. Rudolph.
Yeah, doesn't it kind of feel like the Steelers, I think, trust in Devlin Hodges a little bit more when it comes to passing? Mm-hmm. If Jeff is right and Samuels is playing, because he's questionable right now, I think this goes under. We saw what this coaching staff and this offensive coordinator staff, what they think of Mason Rudolph passing the ball, which is they don't think very highly of it. Maybe in some spot matchups, right? And we'll get to that in the showdown picks with Juju Smith-Schuster. But if Samuels is active, I really think they go to that Wildcat. I think they really hone on this rush defense, because if you look what Miami's given up over the past few weeks, 160 yards over the last, I think, few weeks. In terms of rushing, and that's why teams don't really pass on Miami. That's why you don't see a lot of passing yards against Miami secondaries, because teams are just really successful running the ball. Again, this offensive line has been banged up a little bit, and James Conner has been a little bit of a disappointment this season, but this is a get-right spot. They kind of have Monday night. I mentioned the stats rolled off in that first question. So I think he goes under with James Conner having a bigger night than usual.
Okay, so how much, going off the script here, because someone's asking on Facebook, how much do you expect Benny Snell to be in the mix? Because isn't Samuels, what is he, questionable?
Yeah, questionable. I honestly think that they keep him out. I don't think there's really a rush to bring him back. This guy is, he's a Swiss Army knife, right? He can do quite a bit. And
had that breakout game a couple weeks ago, right. 75 yards.
Rushing him back against the Dolphins, it doesn't really make any sense. And Benny Snell is good because we've seen Conner get banged up. It's hard to trust someone like that because you're hoping for an injury for that to be the case. But I wouldn't play Benny Snell unless you know the information about Samuels.
Okay. Do you guys have anything else you'd want to add to that? We actually have someone watching on Facebook, so they had a question.
I mean, for Showdown, Benny Snell is kind of interesting. I don't really think Benny Snell's that good, but just in this spot, where Pittsburgh could be up 30, in my opinion, at some point in this game, Benny Snell definitely has to be on the DFS radar for Showdown tonight, 100%.
Okay, good stuff. Let's go to the next question. Kenyan Drake gone, as Brendan Glasheen just gave us that information in his fantasy flash. Mark Walton, 14 carries against Buffalo last time out. His rushing total set at 48.5. Chaser Fade, goes over that mark, Jeff.
I'm gonna go under here again. It's just you're running into the teeth of a Pittsburgh defense. I mean, this is a team that's allowed under 4 yards per carry. Their defense is good. I mean, Pittsburgh defense, yeah, they have some deficiencies in like pass coverage, and people like to highlight how terrible they are at covering wide receivers out of the slot, but it's not in the run game. I mean, this is a really solid front seven, and I mean, Mark Walton, yeah, high energy guy, I guess. He's going to get some carries, but it's not like Miami's been good at running the ball at any point this year. So again, I'm not interested in any over props for Miami. It's certainly not this one. Take the under.
Ooh, Reed.
Yeah, this is the second Monday night game that the Steelers have had. One was against Cincinnati, and now they get in Miami on Monday. Really good primetime games here in NFL. Such a schedule. I mean, come on. Granted,
they should be able to flex these by now.
This is why you have betting, though, guys. Like, I'm actually excited for this game.
Clearly, I get
it.
Clearly. In that Cincinnati game Monday night, let's just go back there. 73 yards to Joe Mixon and company. Cincinnati, again, not a really good run defense or run offense. And what you like about Mark Walton now is that he's earned that position. Kenyan Drake not earning that starting position in Miami. Now he's gone. He has, and that's not really a tall task when you have Kalen Ballage and Kenyan Drake that you have to supplant there. He's getting the carries. He's getting those 14 to 15 carries. If that's the case, I like it so I like this prop because I really think that Miami's going to be down. So where are they going to go? Yes, Devante Parker is there, and yes, you can feasibly say Preston Williams and these receivers with Fitzpatrick, but I still think they early on in the game rely on this backfield with Mark Walton, who actually coincidentally was with Cincinnati last year, and now he's with Miami. So maybe there's some narrative there, but I like it.
Matt, you're a huge Mark Walton guy.
Oh yeah, huge. Yeah, no, I'm gonna fade this pretty easily. I think, like the guys mentioned already, Pittsburgh, you're not really gonna want to rush against them. They've only let an opposing running back hit this number twice out of their last 5 games. And when Miami falls behind, which they likely will, they throw the ball at like 70% rate. So they're not going to really be looking to establish the run, even if it's reasonably close, I would imagine. So yeah, I'll fade this.
I will say Pittsburgh, though, they've given up an average of 152 yards to good running backs like Seattle, Baltimore, San Francisco. Like, is Connor, do we think Connor is in that ballpark or no? Probably not.
Are you talking about?
Oh, I'm just talking to the panel here. Do you guys think that that's the case? I mean, they've been susceptible to these big, and if they're running it, 40, 50% of the time.
We're talking about Pittsburgh's defense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're talking about Walton.
Yeah, I'm talking about Walton,
Okay,
getting to that over mark. I mean, Pittsburgh has been susceptible to big games on the ground. They've held some of these teams that have trash running backs, but better running backs, which James Conner has shown flashes of being a good running back, potentially could, and I get it. Like, Mark Walton is going to be someone that is going to get those carries. I'm just, throwing out numbers.
No,
I
that's
don't
fine.
even think Mark Wahlberg would be able to get 100 yards versus Pittsburgh's side.
Well, that's because he's a special teams ace.
That's true.
Anyone?
Yeah.
Do we all get it?
Incredible, is that what?
And then what about Tony Danza, right? He was the garbage kicking, field goal kicking guy. that was a great one. One of the best football movies ever made. We'll have all 3 of you back to get your showdown picks coming up after Pat Mayo gives us a preview of Monday Night Football. It's going to be thrilling.
Steelers 14-point favorites at home against the Dolphins. Obviously, we know there's no Kenyan Drake in this matchup. So, first of all, spread-wise, I still like the Steelers. I'm not having a great spread week. I believe I'm 6-8 coming into tonight. But, after 12-2 last week, you got to take the good with the bad if I'm just going to end up in a situation where I can tread some water on the bad weeks. That's good news. But with the Steelers' defense, it's just going to be really tough to see the Dolphins moving the ball. So if we even talk about the spread, minus 14, the over-under, I have no real opinion on that. But if we talk about DraftKings Showdown, what do you want to do with your captain slot? Because I think a lot of people may turn to Mark Walton here because he's cheap. He's only $9,000 as your captain on DraftKings here, knowing that he's going to get a large percentage of the workload. I just don't like this matchup at all for him.
Yeah, so starting with the DraftKings side of it, yeah, it's a really tough spot. I mean, you have James Conner, probably the best play in the game, but he's $13,400. So when you factor in salary, really tough to get him in your captain spot. There's a couple of spots that I like here. I like both of the wide receivers on the outside who will probably play 80+% of the snaps in Devante Parker and Preston Williams. Devante Parker seems to be Ryan Fitzpatrick's more preferred target, more air yards, but Preston Williams is also up there in air yards and also targets. So I'll take the $1,000 savings. I like Preston Williams as a captain option as well as Parker. Paying all the way up for James Conner on this type of a slate, I actually think it's fine because there's a lot of value options on the board, even some high upside ones in terms of their snap count. I'm probably not going to get to Mark Walton for the same reasons as you just mentioned. You're going to need a high, probably 2 touchdowns out of Mark Walton for it to pay off, unless he just catches 6 or 7 balls. Even then, will he outscore some other players around his price range, like a Preston Williams, Devante Parker? I don't think so. In terms of the spread of the game, 14 points. I don't have a side in this, but I lean Pittsburgh. And I think a big piece of it will be if Jalen Samuels does suit up, he practiced in full this past week, he should be suiting up. If he returns, well, it's a lot easier to keep drives going if you have Jalen Samuels and Connor as a 1-2 punch than Benny Snell and Connor. So I think that just kind of milks this clock a little bit. It plays into the advantage of the Steelers. So if he's active, and I expect him to be, I would lean the Steelers.
So those you hit on one of the more interesting names on this DraftKings Showdown slate. Jalen Samuels against the league's worst run defense at $4,400. To make him your captain, it would only cost $6,600. We've seen situations where both Connor and Samuels are on the field at the same time. We've seen wildcat from Jalen Samuels, and then he ended up getting hurt. If he does play, do you have interest in him at $4,400?
I definitely have interest and a lot of interest in terms of the flex spots in the captain spot. So like the main thing for him is, does he have 2 touchdown upside? And it probably comes down to how quickly does this turn into a blowout, if it turns into a blowout. So I think there's a lot of risk there. That's probably what you need from a captain. I lean to put him in my flex spot a lot. And I do think it's okay. Like if you're making groups or something, or just building by hand, to have both Connor and a guy like Samuels in your lineups, both of them, I think it's fine. We've seen it work out for a handful of teams this season, and the one that stands out is the Cowboys with Zeke and Pollard both going for 100+.
All right. Here we go. So last night, this is a true story. I'm like sitting there on the couch. I'm like mashing this bowl of watermelon. I'm following along like with Tiger on Twitter and what he's doing there over in Japan. I put it on TV. My wife's moaning and groaning. We only have one TV. She wants to watch some stinking Netflix show she's seen 100 times already. I win the battle. I get to watch Tiger win historic number 82. And boy, oh boy, did it make me feel good. Made me feel real good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
what was a better competition, you against Meg or Tiger winning the Zozo Championship? I mean,
there was definitely tighter competition between my wife and I, because she almost won that.
Yeah.
She almost won that battle. Jeff, you're here too.
Yeah.
Jeff, sorry, dude. Hey, you're watching history last night. Just want to get your thoughts. I mean, how cool was that? And when do you think 83's coming?
I mean, 83 is probably coming pretty soon. I mean, look, it's an interesting development with Tiger Woods. I mean, I think Reed and I are both pretty shocked at this. I know last week we were talking about not having high expectations for Tiger, a guy coming off a knee scope, multiple injuries where he looked burned out at the end of the year. But obviously, whatever he was doing, I don't know, like cryo chamber, whatever, it worked. So all it is about Tiger Woods just staying fresh. I mean, the game is there. We know that from last year when he was able to peak. So I think you'll see him probably get 83 pretty early in the season. Some good events for him coming up on the West Coast too.
Yeah, and just for anyone watching, you're like, what the hell are they talking about? Tiger Woods winning his 82nd tournament, tying Sam Snead for most PGA Tour wins in history. I mean, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic, and this is what you now getting 1 year of exposure to the Zozo Championship and that course. We kind of know that it was tailor-made for Tiger. Clearly, he won, so it's obvious to say that now. By looking at what you need there, right? Sand, par 3 scoring, sand saves, short, wedges. Yep. That's Tiger's game, and when he gets that putter rolling, it's amazing. And if you just look at the majors coming up this year, you have Augusta, which he clearly dominates. You have the PGA.
Yes, give me 83 at Augusta when he'd get his 6-screen jacket, which would tie Jack for most all-time there at the Masters.
You have TPC Harding Park, which, back in 2005, he won a WGC event there. He's won match plays there. Winged Foot is probably the one of the U.S. Open, which is kind of scary.
Oh, hey, bro. We played that course.
We did. But Winged Foot, going back to actually the things that we want to talk about, that's going to be tough for Tiger. I don't think he does well. Last time he was there, which is when his father passed, and he just didn't have a good. He was, wasn't thinking about golf at that moment. And then
you guys break 120 at Winged Foot or what?
We as a team did not even come close to that. I
got a great shirt though.
Like the major track, there are some spots that you like Tiger. We know that he's going to play the courses that he likes, right? He's a course horse, and so it's going to be exciting. He still has a game, clearly.
Love it, baby. Love it. All right, let's play. Let's look at this week's tournament. It's a WGC event here in. I keep saying here in China. So you tell me that the following golfers should have better or worse odds to win this event. Jeff, Rory McIlroy plus 600. He is the tournament favorite. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, Rory cleaned up kind of. Well, he didn't clean up, but he finished really strong last week. He enters in really good form, and he's got really solid course history at this week's event. A bunch of top tens. It really comes down to the field too. I mean, outside of Rory, most of the big names have just decided to take this week off. Brooks is obviously injured, but even Dustin Johnson didn't come across. Tiger's taking the week off. And then you have a guy like Justin Rose who's got a good course history here, but he hasn't really played much, hasn't done much in a while. So, yeah, it's set up for a big week for Rory, potentially just to end his season here with another WGC win. He's certainly deserving of being the favorite. I don't know if I necessarily want to bet him at this number, plus 600. Plus 600 for any golfer these days seems like really short odds, and you still have guys like Schauffele, who's really a closer, and Matsuyama coming in with just some really intense form. So, yeah, he's deserving of this price. I do think it's a little bit short for me to be kind of too interested in betting him, though.
Do you feel confident taking these odds with Rory?
No, but I mean, he's going to be the highest priced guy in DraftKings too. I'm more apt to do that and then go elsewhere, and that's where you really stake your claim with Rory. Jeff's right? You look at what he's been able to do last season, winning the Tour Championship. Having a decent performance, a good enough performance for him to be solidified as this. He's clearly the best golfer in this field. It's a strong field. HSBC always attracts a lot of these top golfers, and Rory being one of them. And what you want here is strokes getting off the tee. Guess who's number one over the last 6 tournaments in that category? It's Rory, and it's the fairways gain, too. He's hitting the fairways as well. It's not just bombing it out there at 350 yards, not like Emerson, like me.
Yeah.
He's hitting the fairways, and so he's being accurate with his driver. It's not a long course, but if you get a little wayward off the tee, that can get you in trouble. Rory's doing that. His ball striking is there. Everything is there for him. If you want to bet this number, I'm not going to blame you, but it's too short for my liking. But clearly the best in this field.
Okay, I got to start off with you on this one. Tony Finau, plus 2,000 odds. So go ahead and just tell me why they should be better. Go ahead.
Me. He should be second to Rory. No, I'm not. He shouldn't be second. No, in all seriousness, this isn't a course that Tony should do well at, right? He doesn't hit the ball straight. He hits the ball far. But since, playing here, he has really solid finishes at this tournament. He has a runner-up finish. And at plus 2,000, again, he's going to stay around this number because of the sentiment, clearly, that the public thinks of Tony Finau. He's a popular golfer. But having said that, all the stuff lines up for Finau to perform well here. Plus 2,000 might be a little short. Again, I'll probably lean a little bit more on DraftKings with Finau. Probably when it gets closer to the tournament, I'm going to click on that name, and because Finau is Finau. But what you really do like here, and all joking aside, is he's a better bent grass putter. He really likes putting on bent grass. That's what we have here. So I like Tony, clearly.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like Tony Finau more this week than last week. I think this setup, it just favors him a little bit more. He's a really good par 5 scorer, 17th last year, 3rd par 5 scorer in the year before. You need to dominate the par 5s at this event. I mean, it's a course that's set up with, some tricky par 4s, some shorter ones that are scoreable, and then some longer ones too. But, just to give you an idea, like Bubba Watson, when he won back in, I think it was 2014, was like 14 under on the par 5s, he's plus 3 on the par 4s. So that's the kind of style of setup it is. And Tony Finau, definitely a golfer that can take advantage of it. It's pretty receptive greens, a little bit slower, which should favor Finau. I mean, he had some success on bent grass, at Colonial earlier this year. So, yeah, I mean, we saw him lose in a playoff. I think these odds are pretty fair. If you're thinking about making a bet on Tony Finau, it's not like terrible odds. It's not great odds either. But I think you should probably be closer to plus 3,000. But yeah, it's an event I won't be shocked to see Tony Finau bounce back at all.
What about Mr. On, plus 4,500? Jeff, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I like this one a little bit more. I mean, Benny On obviously coming off 2 top 10s in a row. And the thing about Benny, too, he made his trek overseas a couple of weeks, like a week prior to Tony Finau. So you do have to start thinking about these things because these are longer journeys that some of these guys are taking. Some of them playing over in Asia for 3 weeks now. And Benny On, I mean, it's pretty well set up for this, too. I mean, he's had a lot of success at Memorial. Another track with 4 shorter par 5s with bent grass greens that you got to take advantage of. It's had some similar winners with Justin Rose. Xander Schauffele's done well at both events. Hideki Matsuyama. So I like this setup for Benny. It wouldn't shock me. And this is a player who at plus 45, I think you're getting really good odds. So this is probably a player I'm going to find myself putting some money on this week.
Yeah, Yeah, no, look at the finishes that he's gotten since coming over to Asia. It's, a top 6 and a top 8, respectively. And that's what you need. We've talked about it when we were talking about the Zozo Championship last week, is that guys that have come over early to get acclimated do fare a little bit better. And that makes sense, right? You're making that huge trek over from wherever these guys are living over where they're situated to Asia. And so, yes, that aside, when you look at Ben-An, he's clearly one of the better ball strikers on tour. These swing season tournaments you really like for Ben-An. Guys in his price range, and so I'm going to be a little less optimistic on him, even though I like him as a golfer. I'm going to be a little less optimistic about him for this tournament. Adam Hadwin is a guy that we did not see perform well at all last season. Towards the end, and then even towards the beginning of this season, he's performed a lot better, especially over in Asia.
I am not rostering that guy anymore right now.
Yeah, he burned you a bunch in our head-to-heads.
I'm done with him.
But again, if you look at him, strokes gained putting around the green, there's a ton of bunkers here. You're going to need to be pretty good around the greens, and that's really Adam Hadwin's game. You don't need distance. This guy hits the fairway. I like his number at plus 4,500, and even Eric Van Rooyen and EVR at a little bit higher odds as well.
Good stuff. You guys hang out. We got people asking when we're getting to NFL Showdown picks for tonight's Monday Night Football game between the Steelers and Dolphins. That is coming up next, right after Panel B talks about tomorrow night's Game 6 of the World Series.
Let's shift, though, to the World Series a little bit, unless anyone had any big other notes from NFL that they wanted to talk about. Well, don't worry, folks. We'll talk Monday night later on.
That's what they're here for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're good. We'll look at week 9
now,
on
when
Wednesday.
we last spoke back on Wednesday,
have things changed?
Things have changed quite a little. It was a 1-0 series lead for the Nationals. We thought they could go up 2-0 and said at that point you take the Astros if the Nationals go up 2-0.
Yeah, we actually kind of had a really smart World Series script almost that we all liked of backing Strasburg in Game 2 on the road at plus 160, which is again going to be this Game 6 matchup in Houston on Tuesday, is Strasburg plus 160 again against Verlander. And then if Houston went down 2-0, considering Houston on the live series line, which I think I guessed would be around plus 180, after it happened, it turned out it was around plus 225, even better. And we said they could compete in Washington, and then they just win 3 in a row.
Yep. Road team winning every game so far.
Amazing.
In the series.
Amazing.
Then on top of that, the news yesterday with Max Scherzer waking up unable to move. You actually saw, if you saw the side camera, like the injection point in his neck, like it looked like Bukes' Frankenstein shirt yesterday. There was like a hole in his neck. It was no joke, and I think we know. Yeah, I mean, that's a shout out to your fashion, man.
Mattress Mac. Messing around with Max Scherzer's mattress got him a bad night's sleep. Guy needs to win $1 million bets. I would do the same
thing. Very
thing.
House of Cardsian approach there. And a guy who does everything at this like intensity level of like 11 out of 10, so you know his spasms have to be the absolute worst.
Well, somebody brought up a good point. Like, he pitched the broken face.
Right. We talked about that on Panel B back in the day.
Yep.
And still pitched through it. And if you literally cannot move, you cannot pitch. And they don't know if he'll be ready for Game 7 yet. So you might not have him at all.
It's crazy.
Let's talk about the game at hand, though. You do have, now this game's tomorrow, it's not tonight.
Yep.
As of now, Strasburg on the road is a favorite, minus, sorry, I was looking at the run line there. Apologies.
Oh.
He is an underdog, plus 155.
Okay,
Verlander, minus 180. If you want to go to the series line, which you missed your chance.
A while unless you like the Nationals, then you haven't missed your chance.
Unless you want the Nationals, who are plus 650, minus 1,000 on the Astros. Okay, well, if you want to consider that, you get this game and then just say, hey, look, maybe Scherzer's back, or maybe it's one game. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, so you got Strasburg going. Right. He's been lights out the entire playoff run. He's pitched 5 games, 28 innings, 6 runs allowed, 40 strikeouts through 28 innings. Now, the Astros are a tough team to strike out, but Strasburg has done it against his team. I don't feel good about Verlander. I don't know how you can feel good about Verlander right now. I get it's the playoffs and the mentality that, Verlander gets it done in the playoffs. He's not got it done here. Through the entire playoffs, 30 innings, 14 runs, 25 hits, 6 home runs allowed. 6. That is a ton of home runs to allow in the playoffs because you're going against the best teams here. Mm-hmm. So, for me, if you think they can beat Verlander, I mean, everything's on the table in Game 7. You could see everybody in that game, so it's almost impossible to predict. But if you like them in this game, why would you not take the series line? Right. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of value on that. At plus 650, that's a lot more than I expected, quite honestly. I just don't think you can trust Verlander. I'm not on that train right now.
Okay, we are back. The best Monday Night Football game of the season is tonight. Steelers and the Dolphins. We have 3 DraftKings contributors here to talk about Showdown picks. Reed T. Ballard to my right, Jeff Ulrich, Mr. Jones, Mr. Matt Jones on your screen. Guys, we do have some news real quick, right? You just saw
Yeah, Jalen Samuels is out. If you're following Jeff Ulrich on Twitter, he actually retweeted, I believe, the DK Live update. So follow
Nice.
both.
Okay, so Reed, start us off. Who's your captain pick tonight?
It's going to be Juju. Your boy Juju Smith-Schuster has not been good this season for any fantasy owners.
He has been terrible.
He has been terrible. But, again, when you look at your captain spot, and this is a smash spot, I believe, for James Conner, the leverage play is going to be Juju. I know the Dolphins give up a ton of yards on the ground, but he also draws, I believe his name, I can't remember the cornerback's name that Juju will be going up against, but he's running in the slot 63% of the time. That's not what you necessarily want, but I really like this in terms of the ownership and then the cost savings that you're getting. He's still the 3rd most expensive at captain, but I like it here.
It's not Xavier Howard you're talking about, is it?
No.
Okay, good. Great. Jeff, captain.
Yeah, I went off earlier on the show how much I like the Pittsburgh Steelers defense here, but I really like the Pittsburgh Steelers DST in Showdown here for a captain spot. I mean, it's just a complete mismatch up front. They're the 3rd best in adjusted sack rate for the Steelers this year coming up. They're getting sacks. They're getting to the quarterback. They're going up against one of the weakest offensive lines in the league. So the only argument I can say against captaining Pittsburgh Steelers DST is I'm not sure if you need to save all that salary, because I don't know how many Miami Dolphins players you want to pay up for. But if you want to get like Ryan Fitzpatrick up there and hope for some garbage yardage, then I think going with the DST over James Conner in the captain spot is definitely a viable line, because I think they're going to put up a massive game.
All right, Matty?
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little chalky and just say James Conner. Like, it's over 20K, but I don't really think that there's much that's going to stop him from having a great game, especially with Samuels out. He's been double-digit rushing attempts and at least 4 targets in all of his games. He's had a couple 7 and 8 target games. And over the past 5 weeks, the Dolphins have given up the 2nd most rush attempts, 2nd most rushing yards, and 10th most receiving yards to running backs.
Okay.
So sign me up for all that.
Matt, who do you stack with him?
The defense. For all the reasons Jeff mentioned.
Okay. Jeff, who are you stacking with DST?
Yeah, I'll just say quickly, this kind of feels like a lot like last week, where I was making arguments mainly against trying not to go off the chalk pick, but it ended up just being, you should have played the chalk pick as the captain. So I think James Conner is an absolutely fine captain's pick as well. And I mean, I'll just say that if you're going to actually go with the DST at captains, you should just play both running backs, because I think Benny Snell with Jalen Samuels is going to get plenty of run, or has the potential to get plenty of run in this game too. So definitely, if you're going to save money at captain by going DST, play both running back, Pittsburgh running backs anyways with them.
Reed, we're not reinventing the wheel here, buddy.
No, there's more of a GPP angle. Mason Rudolph for me is going to be the stack, clearly because I have Juju there. He's completing 60% of his dropbacks. Miami gives up the 2nd most DK fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks.
Tom, how much time do we have left? About a minute and a half? 90 seconds. Okay, where can we find value? Jeff.
Value, Allen Hurns playing out of the slot a lot. Pittsburgh not good against covering out of the slot. It's really deep value, but he is playing, and Albert Wilson's banged up.
Allen Hurns.
Former
man.
Jacksonville Jaguar.
Yeah.
I'm playing Mark Walton for the reasons why I mentioned at the top. He's getting the touches, so give me Mark Walton.
Matt, value.
No, I'm all in on Hurns too. Like $200 for 2 targets every active game. Come on, we never get anybody who's actually used in for $200. So why not?
Who are we totally fading tonight, Reed?
Vance McDonald. I like the
I'm
other,
playing against him.
Yeah, I like the other guys, and I just think that when you have Juju and James Conner and Benny Snell potentially, and Allen Hurns, these guys can potentially do more than Vance McDonald.
Jeff?
I'm fading Reed's boy, Mark Wahlberg. Those Transformer movies are awful.
You know what? I haven't seen any of his.
Cut the tape that Mark Wahlberg, a Boston favorite here, Jeff Ulrich does not like. So.
Yep, I think he actually is a small investor in DraftKings, so this should work out perfectly.
Yeah.
Okay, then I take it.
I'm just kidding. Matt, who are you fading?
I think $7,800 for Deontay Johnson is a ludicrous price. I don't think he has a ceiling, so I'm pretty much staying away from all Dolphins.
Matt, I like you. Jeff, I like you. Reed, I like you. Appreciate you helping everyone out. Hope you guys all had your questions answered. I think we got to most of them. We'll be back again tomorrow, 6 o'clock Eastern.